It's Wednesday here on Dom's Corner, and I am sitting down with Adam Leach once again. Been a while since we've had him on, so pretty happy to have him again. Today we're going to be doing something different than we did last time. Today we're going to be talking about Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Pretty excited to do that. I just revisited the movie for the first time in a long time, and
as did I.
Yes, and I have a lot of thoughts about that. But Adam, how you doing today?
I'm not too bad. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. A lot of technical difficulties going on here, so that's always wonderful. But
get them figured out.
Anyway, so let's talk about Phantom Menace. I guess year was 1999 when this came out. I remember standing in line and being pretty excited as a kid. I have some memorabilia from that. I don't know. Let's see here. Do you remember these, Adam? I got these thingies, these from Burger King or whatever. You remember these?
Are those Pogs?
Pogs, yeah, that's what they were called. Yeah, I got the Boss Nass one. Anakin. Let's see. Padme.
Nice.
Yeah. It's been a long time since I'd seen these. I actually dug them up specifically for this today. So
those are practically vintage now.
I know, right? So what was your experience like when you first saw The Phantom Menace? Do you remember this when you were a kid, or?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, Star Wars in general was obviously a big part of my life, but I very vividly remember watching the prequel trilogy when they came out in theaters because I was so little. And
right.
The Phantom Menace at the time was, it was out of this world. There was nothing like it that I remember as a child. It was just, all the stuff that the originals had that I enjoyed as a kid. The Phantom Menace was like, as a child, was that, except it had more lightsabers, which is always good. So as a kid, I was like ecstatic. I remember my cousins had like all of the lightsaber toys. Like they had the Darth Maul lightsaber, and we used to be jumping around on their trampoline and doing lightsaber fights and stuff. So I was ecstatic about it as a child.
Right. Me too, man. And it was just one of the best times, I think, to be a Star Wars fan. Like, seriously. I mean, even as a kid, like, I knew that there was something different about going to see this in particular movie than going to see, like, I don't know, Toy Story or something, right? Like there was something different in the room, like, when it came down to seeing Phantom Menace as a kid. I remember in the back of my mind, I was bored as hell, but I just knew there was something special, within the environment of it. And I don't know, did you you were saying you remember I remember playing them. I don't know, I remember playing with the lightsabers when I was a kid, just, kind of like you were kind of getting at there. And it just, I don't know, man, there is just something different when you go to see a Star Wars movie. And I think that the Phantom Menace, it kind of solidified for me that for me as a child. But did you, while you were watching the movie as a kid, I guess my question would be is, do you remember if you were feeling bored, or do you remember if you're feeling excited just watching it, or I don't know, maybe go into that a little bit?
I don't remember feeling bored as a kid. I was pretty young. I was very young when it came out. But I watched all the movies as I grew up over and over and over again. But as a kid, I wasn't exactly grasping plot lines. I was more watching just for sheer face value entertainment. Right. So I wasn't bored because it was exciting. There were all these different creatures. There were these lightsabers. There was the pod racing scene was out of this world. It was very exciting. Now, if you're going to ask me, did I understand the plot line? Absolutely not, because to this day, a lot of adults still aren't quite sure what the plot line was of that movie.
You make a really good point there, though. Like, I don't know. I don't think I could have said that any better myself. Like, I don't understand that plot whatsoever. I don't think even to this day where I'm at, like, I mean, I do understand it, but like, I don't understand like what it was. I don't know. Like, one of the things I'll say about rewatching this today is like all the political moments in this movie. Like, there's parts of it that I clearly like. I get it after seeing it so many times, but then like one character will say one thing and then it will go into a whole other thing, and then it's like, did any of that make any sense? Like, and that's as an adult. I don't know if that tells you anything, but
Yeah,
it just I don't know, man. That's just how I was feeling just even watching it today. But so you rewatched the movie today.
I did.
Okay, I'll let you go first on this. What were your overall thoughts going back in?
Okay. Now the immediate thing that I noticed after not watching it in several years was that the plot line it's kind of complicated and kind of convoluted, and the main issue with that is how they begin the movie is not starting out on the right foot. They did not pace themselves correctly. When it starts out, I don't remember feeling this as a kid because I was more excited about the whole wonder and the mystery of space and all the technology and stuff. But as an adult, you want to know, okay, what is this movie actually about? And they pace it so quickly. It's like something happens, there's clunky dialogue, and then screen wipe, and then something happens, clunky dialogue, and then screen wipe, and it's just like one thing happening after another. And I remember specifically feeling this time as if it's almost like there's supposed to be a movie before this that we never watched.
Right.
It feels, when the movie starts, it feels like there's something that we should have known going into this.
What do you? Yeah, maybe. I don't disagree entirely because, well, I don't know. That'll bring me to this. This is what I have for you. Okay, like I know what you're saying, and I would agree as just a viewer of the film, but I do recommend that everybody just should pick up this book. It's a canon novel called Master and Apprentice, and this kind of prefaces the movie pretty well, especially when you're diving into like the Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon relationship. Like, this book has like a lot of that going on that sets it up pretty well. And hold on one second, I got it. This Darth Maul graphic novel is fantastic, just for Darth Maul fans. But yes, as a movie, I'm going to agree with you because you should not need books to understand what's going on in a movie. But yeah, the beginning of this thing just kind of starts, right, and it's insane because you think about George Lucas before this, you know what I mean, and what he'd done, and when I'm watching the Phantom Menace again, I'm sitting there like, what happened to you, George? Because it's not the same George Lucas we knew. There's a scene. Let's start from the beginning of this. So they're going in, right? So it's Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. They go in to the because there's a trade federation dispute. Okay, but they're going in with the what are those frog people called? Neimoidians? Or something like that.
Frog people?
Yeah, the ones that are in charge of the whole trade federation at this.
Oh, yeah. I don't even remember what they're called.
It's Neimoidians, I'm pretty sure, but I don't have a fact checker.
Frog people. I like frog people better.
They look like frog people. But,
they do.
So, anyway. So, so basically what we're seeing is just this ship going in, and it feels like a Star Trek movie to me, like over a Star Wars right here in the beginning, because the way the dialogue is done is all just, tell them we want to land immediately, and it's just so bland. You know what I mean?
It's so bland.
And so anyway, so they go into this place, and one of the things that I actually like, despite the fact that we don't have like a lot to preface it other than the book, which, by the way, this is how sad this is. That book does preface this movie pretty well. Like it gives it like a lot more meaning between the relationship of Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. But that book like just came out like last year, so that just shows you like how sad this is. But I actually, in the movie, I like the chemistry between the two actors. I think that if I could say one good thing here in this about the sequence, it's that Ewan McGregor and Liam Neeson work really well on the screen together. Like they actually do have good chemistry, and that to me kind of keeps me going with the movie. I don't know. How do you feel about the chemistry between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon in the movie?
It's hard for me to say because Obi-Wan in episode 1 is kind of a peculiar character. I don't feel like you really get a lot of his personality until episode 2 and 3. Episode 1 is he kind of has a strange personality. He doesn't have a ton of lines. So you don't really get to see any dynamic part of his character. So I've always kind of thought that about episode 1 specifically with Obi-Wan. I just thought his character was kind of bizarre in it was probably has to do with the writing, like most of the movie has to do with the writing. The writing was just pretty bad. But yeah, I mean, I could definitely see with a more seasoned Obi-Wan character with better writing, him and Liam Neeson next to each other, I feel like would get along great on screen. I just feel like the way they introduced Obi-Wan in episode 1 and the lines they gave him and everything, it felt very minuscule, felt like a missed opportunity, I guess.
A missed opportunity is definitely a phrase that I would use here because, there could have been more of this, at least relationship between the two throughout the entirety of the film. Like I know people. There are people out there that love the politics in this film, and I say that's hog shit. Like these politics in this movie are terrible. There's a book called Bloodline. It's written by Claudia Gray, the same person that wrote that Master and Apprentice one, which is all like Star Wars politics. So you want to see Star Wars politics that are amazing, read that book. But this movie, the politics, they're not good. Like, and a lot of it is, I attribute a lot of that to the writing, the script. So I think that if we had just used more of that time to develop the relationship between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, it would have been better. That said, I just think that the actors had a good enough chemistry that it kept me
Right.
in. But I just, yeah, you're right though. I mean, the way they introduced these two, and just like, I don't know, man. It's not as well executed as say like Luke Skywalker on the farm. You know, like it's that's a better introduction because I don't know, it just tells you everything you need to know about the character. And these two, we have none of that, so it's interesting. The only thing that we can rely on as far as Obi-Wan goes is obviously the original trilogy. You know, we just happen to have that. We just happen to be fortunate enough to have had 4, 5, and 6 before 1, 2, and 3. But if you want to call this episode 1, you gotta make it feel like it's the first episode. That's just kind of how I feel, and really give us good introductions to these characters. But anyway, so Obi-Wan and the one line I like by Obi-Wan though in the sequence is you were right about one thing, the negotiations was shut. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
That was pretty good. And there's some other lines in this movie that just, I don't know, they're horrible, but they actually make me laugh. But we'll get into that in a bit. So
I like how his first line in the movie is, "I have a bad feeling about this."
Me too. Like, it's funny because like that, for some reason, as much as I really don't think that this is a great Star Wars movie, when I hear that line, I actually attribute it with this sequence where he says it, because I think it's just because I remember sitting in the theater and seeing that, you know, I don't know, so maybe that's why. But every time I hear that I've had a bad feeling about this, I just think of this movie and that sequence. But anyway, moving on. So there's a whole Trade Federation.
I have to steal this cap from my cat.
Okay.
She's driving me crazy.
You're good. Take a minute.
Okay, she
Alright.
plays these little bottle caps.
Yeah.
She throws them around, and she has been driving me nuts for the last 5 minutes. All right, let's roll.
Last time I had you on, you were so excited to adopt a cat, and here you are just complaining about the thing. But
I love her to death, but she is a kitten for sure. She is a wild card.
yeah, I remember what it was like to have a kitten, so I understand 100%. So there's a whole dispute with the Trade Federation going on, and so then the negotiations are short. So Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, they do the whole lightsaber ignition. There's a part in here. This is how much I hate George Lucas's directing in this movie. But there's a part where they're killing these droids with these lightsabers, and I cannot stand these shots of just like the sabers coming in and taking heads off, like, because all you see is like the tip of the sabers. Like, this honestly could have been done better. Like, it really could have. And there's even one point where Obi-Wan's just like swinging his lightsaber around, and then he just goes, "Master, destroy us," and he just goes off frame, like out of frame. Did you notice that scene? Because
I wasn't paying attention apparently.
he just goes out of frame. It's like, what are you doing, George? Anyway, so
I looked over at Megan at one point during this movie, and I said, "Why didn't somebody slap George Lucas?" Like, what was the film crew thinking? There had to have been at least one person during this movie that was like, something's wrong here.
Oh, they were. Did you ever see the documentary, the behind the scenes on this?
No, I didn't watch it.
Oh my gosh. So Lucas is doing a test screening for like all of his crew at one point in this thing. And it's very telling, because like you could tell like the crew is like half asleep all around him, and he's just sitting there watching this thing like intently, and he just finally he just kind of like looks around at everybody. He's like, I may have went a bit far in a few places. Like, it's very telling. Also the fact that at one point he says in the documentary that Jar Jar was the key to everything, which we'll get into that. So
he was the key to something.
Yeah.
Oh, look what we have here. Okay.
Oh, there's the cat. What's his name again?
She has no boundaries. Her name is B. BB.
I know you told me you got the cat. I don't think you ever told me the name, or maybe you didn't decide yet at that point.
Yeah, it's BB. She's got these pretty blue eyes. she's a rascal. So anyway,
go ahead.
I was gonna say about the beginning. The plot line is like, I mean, the plot line is so political, and they just dive right in. Here she is again. They just dive right in. We're in the middle of it basically a dispute over taxation.
Right.
So we've got the Republic that are trying to impose a tax on the Trade Federation, and the Trade Federation is like, nah, fam, we don't want to pay that. In that regard, I'm like, okay, I see that. I don't like taxes either, Trade Federation. Yeah, go ahead, set up your blockade. I'm like, yeah, that's the libertarian part in me that's like, yeah, taxation is theft. Set up the blockade.
Then the other part of you is wondering if you're watching Star Wars, right? Like,
right. And we just dive right into this with no further explanation about the events that led up to this. And then it's like, why are they setting up a blockade in Naboo? Like, what? It feels so random. We got this just random small little planet. We're mad at the Republic. We're gonna set up a blockade on Naboo. And it was funny. I was on a forum where people were talking about like what the actual movie was about, and there were so many people that were like, we don't really know. Like, we're not really sure about the specifics about why this stuff happened.
It's true. I mean, like I said, these books will give you some stuff. The thing I like about some of the books I plugged here earlier, I mean, they're like, I mean, they're basically they're good for the relationships, but even they don't like really dive into the politics in it. And like again, Star Wars politics are fantastic. You just if they're done well, and these are not done well, and I think that this is really what just I don't want to say ruins this movie, but yeah, ruins this movie is the politics.
I mean, there's a lot
There's
that
a
helps
lot.
ruin
There's
the
a
movie.
lot that helped. You're not wrong. You know, Obi-Wan going out of frame, swinging his lightsaber around, whatever it may be. But like the politics, I think are like okay. I'd say the politics in this movie are like 50% of it, and then like there's a lot of like other little things that like you can add on top of that like.
And the politics are cool. They're just not executed well in this movie. Well, like we were talking about, the way that it starts out, it almost feels like you missed something. Like there was an episode before this that should have led up to it. It's the way they introduced it, and then the way that they just dive right into it, and it's just choppy dialogue and then screen wipe into the next, and you just feel like you're missing a lot of stuff, like they're throwing information at you that you're not sure how to connect the dots. Whereas if they would have spent more time and were a little more clever with the dialogue and introducing these plot points, I mean, I like the plot line. I mean, it's cool, the whole little government sort of play, and the whole taxation bit, and Palpatine being involved with the Trade Federation. I mean, it feels pretty cool, but it's just not executed well.
Right. No, you brought up the wipes, which that's why I like reacted, because like George Lucas went wipe insane with this movie. Like it was wipe. Like I like that that's his trademark thing, and don't get me wrong, but like the amount of wipes in this movie, I lost count. It was insane. But
he was doing a lot of wipes. There was some subliminal messaging in his head or something. I don't know if he had been babysitting babies and he was doing a lot of wiping off screen, and then he decided to do a lot of wiping on screen, but
he's doing a lot of wiping, that guy. A lot of wiping.
Out of control.
Yeah, he was out of control with the wipes. Anyway, so you got the Trade Federation stuff, and that's all cool. And then what I lose track of how they get onto this planet that they go to, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. Do they have to escape, or like, I guess, I mean, it's like the R2C3PO bail, like from the ship, like they escape onto this planet, and then they're on this planet, and then they run into Jar Jar Binks, which is all. I said Trade Federation, or I said politics for 50% of the issues, but I just brought up Jar Jar, and I'm gonna, probably reevaluate that. But Jar Jar is something else. So they run into Jar Jar.
For what it's worth, Jar Jar, at least at the time of originally watching it as a kid, is funny.
Yeah.
He's a funny, stupid character. I think that is one of the biggest downfalls of this movie, is it felt like it was really reaching to be family friendly and get kids to like it. And I think they kind of lost the grown-up Star Wars audience.
Yeah, maybe. But then, like, I don't know. I don't know, because I was bored watching this as a kid. Like, I always said I loved it, but like you say that, maybe it's like it's just bad balancing, because like you got these politics that no kid wants to sit through, and then on the other end of it you have Jar Jar Binks that every kid wants to sit through, but it's balanced poorly, and there's no, I don't know, there's no target demographic for this. I know George likes to say that this movie's for 12-year-olds, but it's so all over the place that there's no target demographic. I'm sorry, I you can say what you will, but there is no main character in this movie. There's anybody can attached to. I understand it's supposed to be Anakin Skywalker, and also if you read the novelization for the Phantom Menace, because the novelization of the Phantom Menace is actually really good, because it fixes a lot of the dialogue, and it really like gives you a lot more depth. And the first 2 chapters start with Anakin Skywalker. This is how this movie should have started, honestly, with Anakin Skywalker. So like, so we knew, who we can be attached to in the movie. We're supposed to see this little boy who Jake Lloyd's performance is, I don't know what the fuck he's doing, and like we're supposed to be attached to him. Anyway, so we're getting Jar Jar, and one of the things I think is cool about this movie, going back to the Jar Jar stuff, is I like the design of the underground city. The design of it is cool, like, but then you got to go to Boss Nass, and he's like, he's talking about Uno Bungos, and it's just like, I don't know what you're doing here. Like, okay,
Uno Bungos.
he is.
Oh,
and and he's slobbering and drooling all over everybody. And I get it's the kid thing again. Yeah, it's the kid thing. Dude, I'm watching this like, what the fuck, man? Like, this movie is not good.
It's yeah.
I gotta tell you, man, like, for a little bit, like, I think it was last year, I was going back through the prequels, and what I ended up doing is I watched all 3 prequels in one sitting, and like, I convinced myself that maybe there was something to this Phantom Menace, you know, but I don't know, man. I watched it again today, and I'm like,
going back to what you were saying a while ago, about not having a target demographic. I looked at my wife during this movie and I said, do you know what the problem of this movie is that they have no clue who their audience is. So it's funny that you brought that up, because on one hand, it feels like they're trying so hard to relate to kids, and they're putting Jar Jar in there. They're making it funny. The dialogue is really clunky and simple. Everything is just real bright, and it feels kind of childish at times. But then they throw in this plot line that is so riddled with government and corruption and all this underlying stuff. And it's so very adult. So it's like, on one hand, you're like, I could see how this would be a kid's movie. On the other hand, you're like, I'm an adult and I still don't know what this movie is about, because that plot line is just too intense for how they were trying to accomplish it. So target demographic. They seem to have no clue who exactly they were trying to attach these movies to. And that was one of the biggest pitfalls. Outside of that, you were talking about Jake Lloyd, and Jake Lloyd, 50% of it is Jake Lloyd. I mean, let's face it, he was a 10-year-old kid. He's not an Oscar-worthy actor. I mean, he's
Finn
a 10-year-old
just
kid.
called and said, "Hold my beer."
So on one hand, I think, no, he's not a phenomenal actor. On the other hand, the lines he was given, trash.
No shit.
Garbage.
Everybody's lines were garbage.
Specifically Anakin, though. I'm telling you, who puts in a script multiple times in a movie for somebody to say, yippee? Are you kidding me?
Grandpa Joe said it.
Twice Anakin says, yippee! And then near the end, if I'm not mistaken, I heard Jar Jar say it when they won the battle. He yelled, yippee! And I thought, who is putting yippee in this script? Nobody says that in real life.
George Lucas.
But all in all, I feel really bad for Jake Lloyd, on a real note, because
me too, man.
That kid has had a rough life. I mean, This movie came out in 99, 2000. By 2001, he didn't want to act anymore. He was getting teased by kids in school.
Yeah.
He was getting death threats from Star Wars fans, and he threw all of his Star Wars stuff away and said, I'm never acting again. And now at 19 years old, he was diagnosed as being schizophrenic. He had issues. He had all sorts of mental issues. And then his sister died when she was only 26. Like, his life is a genuine tragedy. Like, I feel so bad for him.
And Ahmed Best, who voiced Jar Jar, you know, he had I mean, he was suicidal because of the stuff that, you know, people were the shit that a lot of the fans were giving him, and I don't want to add to that. So like, but I want to make sure that I say, like, we don't want to shit on any of these actors as people, because if you get a call to do a Star Wars movie, I don't care how good of an actor you are, go fucking do it. It's a big paycheck. You're gonna take it. It's just natural. Like, it doesn't matter how good the script is, or how, you know, or whatever. Like, we don't want to shit on these actors as people. You know, you know, we're here to analyze a movie today. It's not to shit on people. Like, these are probably fine people, or, you know, and they took a job, you know, and it's a paycheck, and it's a big paycheck, and by no means do we want to shit on these people while analyzing this movie. And
it's one of the downfalls of the Star Wars community is that people get so intense about these movies, and it's like, look, Star Wars is amazing. It's sacred when it comes to film and storytelling. It's amazing. It's been a big part of my life, your life, and all my friends' lives. It's huge. But look, it's a movie.
Yeah.
I can't imagine seeing a movie and being disappointed with the movie, or disappointed with a character, and sending death threats to the person.
Right. Yeah,
how childish can you be?
Yeah, I'm not about all that. We don't want to do that here, and that's just, that's terrible, man. I've never watched a movie and been so disappointed to the degree, you know, where I want to send death threats or make racist comments, and that's a lot of the problem here. So you know, we're not here to shit on anybody. We're just here to analyze a movie. And if a performance is bad, we're gonna say a performance is bad, but that doesn't mean that they were a bad person, or that never means that a performer cannot grow later on in life, and that a performer doesn't have potential. Like Jake Lloyd, who knows what he could have done if he had just kept going. And I understand why.
10-year-old kid, he had his whole career ahead of him, his whole life ahead of him. And let's be honest here, I'm not gonna put it all on Jake Lloyd being a 10-year-old kid being fed a terrible, clunky script.
No.
And on top of that, George Lucas, despite all the great things that he's done, to me, has not proved himself to be a great director in the sense of being able to coach his actors. Because
of course not. No.
Star Wars has a history of bad, clunky acting. Even the originals, there is some cringy acting in the originals, and part of that does fall on a director. Like, there are so many times in Star Wars where I thought, why wouldn't you cut and reshoot that? Like, and especially when you're talking about a 10-year-old kid, Jake Lloyd, like, call cut, bring him over and say, how about you try this? Like, coach the kid. He's impressionable. He's going to listen to you. Like, give him something. So I feel like part of that responsibility falls on the director's shoulders.
Yeah, and I'll even give Jake Lloyd this credit. They put out an audition tape of, like, a lot of the kids that auditioned for Anakin. They were all fucking shit. I mean, Jake Lloyd was probably the best of all of them. I'm not going to lie to you here. Out of all of them, I think Jake Lloyd was the best kid of, you know, I don't know if they actually released all of them that audition, but of the ones they've released, like Jake Lloyd was definitely the best of them. I could say that much. So it's not as easy as it maybe looks too. You know what I mean? And
right.
Yeah, sometimes. And no, it's not a good performance. It's a bad script. It's not a good movie. That's what it comes down to. But anyway, we do need to move into the review here, so let's or to the discussion. So to move further into the plot, or do you have anything more you wanted to add to that, though?
Just one thing that I brought up to Megan that I thought would be funny to introduce to you. What if they had done this movie 10 years earlier, and Macaulay Culkin was Anakin? What if?
Mind blown, dude. Like that.
Who didn't like Macaulay Culkin? Like,
dude, that would have been really awesome, man. Holy shit.
It would have been a super cool role to see him in. But anyway, that was just something that I thought of. So anyway,
how many good child actors did we have then? Anyway, you know. Right. So yeah, moving on into the review. So where were we? So we were talking about Jar Jar, the Gungans. So they get into the Uno Bungo, and then they're they're not flying, but they're it's a submarine type thing, and then they're going through the water. I'm not gonna lie to you, I laughed out loud at this part, man, because when you really break down the scene, it's not good. They're going through the water, and we're again, this is doing nothing for our characters. I understand that like Jar Jar owed Qui-Gon a life debt or whatever, but then this big ass thingy and I don't know, creature, they had a name for it in the book. I don't even know what to compare it to. It's a big ass creature, comes out at him, and it like bites the tail end of the ship. But then like this even bigger creature just comes and just I mean, it was plot convenience at its best, though, you know, and it was like, what did that do as a movie? Like, what does that do? Like, absolutely nothing.
The bad review writes itself, really.
So, yeah, I was laughing my ass off at that part. Which, by the way, if you have any points to make about the stuff I'm saying here, just stop me and make your point. So that way, yeah. So
no, I got nothing else to say about that.
Okay. Like I said, it writes itself, man. Writes itself.
Yeah.
So they're going through the water, and then they get to we finally get to Naboo or Theed, the palace, which I actually think is I actually think the design of the palace I actually like a lot. Like, one of the credits that I'll give to the movie is like the locations or like the environments are actually pretty cool. Like I found that throughout the movie. The environments themselves are like I want to spend time in the environments. That's one thing like Lucas like never got rid of is his environment work. Although a lot of these were done on like blue screen and it's pretty easy to tell. But it still the environments to me just definitely they just always work in Star Wars movies most of the time, and that's one thing I'll say that he still had. But we're at the palace, and then we get to these more of these fucking droids. There's these guys, and they just they kill some more droids, and then moving on from that, we get to we end up somehow they get assigned to go to the planet of Tatooine. Do you remember why they went to Tatooine? I don't remember a good reason for that.
I don't. I don't. And I actually specifically remember reading something in a forum about somebody asking a similar question. Like, are we even sure why these things are happening?
It's true. It's like the motivations for why one person does the next thing is like, I know for a fact that when I was reading the novelization for the Phantom Menace, there's reasoning for everything in that, you know, but like, I don't think that the movie ever really gave it. I did skip your favorite character, so I'm sorry. So we'll go back to that because that whole space battle moment where we get introduced to R2 is actually probably one of the moments in the movie that I could say is absolutely awesome. Like, I actually really like the space battle moment where we get introduced to R2 right before they go to Tatooine. Did you want to speak on that a little bit?
I mean, honestly, in Star Wars in general, most space battle moments are pretty solid.
Yeah, that's true.
So that can be said. And yeah, R2 is my favorite Star Wars character. So anytime R2 comes up, I'm going to like it.
Yeah. I definitely enjoyed this moment. I thought it was solid throughout. Oh, that's why they go to Tatooine. I feel like an idiot now because their ship was broken from the battle, so they had to land somewhere.
Right. So it was
My
like
bad.
an emergency
Whoops.
landing situation.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't want to shit on the whole movie. There are some things that are explained, I guess. But, so they end up landing at Tatooine because they need to get parts for the ship. So I actually like it here because we actually have a plot kind of going on here finally.
This is the moment in the movie where I felt it started slowing down and pacing itself.
Yeah.
Up until that point, the movie, like I said, the movie is clunky dialogue, screen wipe, clunky dialogue, screen wipe. It's like just vomiting terrible information at you, and then it slows down and we have a real
Mm-hmm.
story.
It's 100% a mess up until this point. Like, there's no doubt about it. Like, once you hit the space battle where we get introduced to R2, it's like, yeah, it's all good. Not all good, but I'm saying, like, we finally have a structure, I think. And so we land on Tatooine, and then this is where we meet Jake Lloyd, or Anakin Skywalker, who's just like, I don't know, like, I don't want to be like, I don't want to be a dick about it, but like he really kept getting on my nerves in these moments, because like he just kept like tugging on Qui-Gon's jacket and like telling him shit like all throughout their Tatooine trip, and it's just like, this is not the way that you should meet. It doesn't make sense. Like, it's like, no Jedi is gonna give his time of day to this little kid, you know? Nor is he just gonna go to his house. I understand there was a sandstorm because they needed shelter, but like Qui-Gon, like I feel like if I was Qui-Gon, I would have asked around like about, you know, shelter. Like I wouldn't have just like fucking like, hey, you gotta come to my house with this kid. You know? But
they walk in, they meet this kid, and they're like, is there anybody else? Any other house we can stay?
I wouldn't have even believed this kid had a house. I mean, not to mention, he's a slave. Like, you would think he would just live with his slave owner. You wouldn't think he lived somewhere with his mom in this cozy little house. I mean, they make being a slave not look all that bad in this movie, but okay.
I mean, yeah, that is curious when you think about slaves in general. You think about, I mean, you don't think about having your own house.
Yeah, it's true. And
so, I mean, I don't know what kind of, and you know, that would have been something a little more interesting to explore further, would be what it was like for him and his mom being slaves, like to see even more of their background and the kind of stuff that they were being put through. Because the way that it's introduced, I mean, it's exactly how you're thinking. We've got these two people that are supposed to be slaves, but they've got their own house. The kid is clearly in annoyingly good spirits. It's like,
yeah, it's crazy. And like in the novelization, it does just that. Like in the very beginning, when I was telling you, the first 2 chapters are all Anakin in the novelization, and it actually covers like what it was like for him to be a slave, and you get like an actual character setup. And now I'm glad it's in the movie at all that he's a slave, because it gives me a reason to care about him, I guess. But you know, other than that, I mean, it's just like, it doesn't make sense. None of this stuff adds up, and like, so Qui-Gon ends up, you know, going back to Anakin's house. There is a really very good performance in this movie that never gets talked about. The woman that plays Shmi Skywalker is actually very good in this movie, and nobody ever talks about it. Yeah, she's not bad. She's very good, and she, like, you could tell she cared about this role, and her lines weren't bad. I don't know why Lucas, like, favored her character, but her lines were even pretty good. Like,
it's probably because he had a crush on her in real life. He was like, I'm going to give her the good lines.
Right.
Everyone else gets crap lines except you.
That might be true. Crazy old George. But so we get to meet 3PO. I actually like this moment. This is a great moment. I like the idea of 3PO like not having everything done on it. Yeah. That actually makes sense. And
it's cool.
Or the fact that Anakin built him is actually a really cool concept. These ideas is like where George Lucas really starts to hit his stride, because if you ask me, when it comes to like, here's the thing I'll say about George Lucas, and even with this movie, his directing, writing, maybe not there like it once was, and even you said his directing with actors might not have been a strong suit back in the day, but as a storyteller, that guy's gonna do circles around me, man, or any of us. Like, he's still a good storyteller, and his ideas are good, but his execution of the ideas are not. And this is one of those points where you just see, like, okay, how much he thinks about things before he, you know what I mean? Like, he thought of this. Like, Anakin would build, you know, 3PO, and this is all pre-planned. So anyway, so we meet 3PO and Padme's, excuse me, brings Padme up to his room to meet 3PO. If I was the mother, I would not let my son bring that girl up to my room or his room, but
No girls were allowed in my room when I was 10 years old.
I agree. Yeah, same thing.
And how old is Padme in this movie at this point? Do we know?
16?
16?
I think that's supposed to be right.
So
Yeah.
he's like 10 and she's like 16. So that's peculiar. But I mean, the relationship doesn't start until much older, so there's that. But I feel, yeah, probably a good move not to start revealing that there is any chemistry there at that age.
Yeah, probably not, but
It is really bizarre to think about, though, that they end up together later, because when they meet, you're just kind of like, this is weird.
you know what's odd though is I was watching this. I was watching these two interact, and I was like, Jake Lloyd has better chemistry on screen than Hayden Christensen did later on.
Don't even get me started with Hayden Christensen.
We'll save that for another time.
We probably would have been better off if we would have just waited for Jake Lloyd to get a little older and let him do Anakin.
He probably would have done better. Oh boy. Okay, so so anyway, so the one scene I like actually around this area, I actually think the entire scene, I don't have one problem with it. I don't have one problem with the dialogue. I don't have one problem with the shots in it. I think the whole scene works out well. Is the dinner table scene. Even Jar Jar's tongue comedy works in this scene. Like it, everything in this one scene is working. You don't like it?
No,
you were doing the motion.
I was just thinking.
You were doing the motion.
It was funny when he grabs his tongue.
Yeah, I thought that
because he's talking about having Jedi reflexes, and then he's like, whoosh.
Yeah, I don't know, something about that just felt like it was very Star Wars-y humor to me. Like
I don't hate everything about Jar Jar. I mean, I think he is kind of funny. He gets annoying, but there are moments where he is funny. I think as a whole, his character is kind of out of place. But
yeah, this is one of. I don't have a problem with Jar Jar being there, and when Jar Jar is funny, he actually does work. It was but my problem is most of the time when he's trying to crack jokes, it's out of place, and it's not Star Wars type humor to me. Like it doesn't feel like Star Wars when like the tongue thing to me was Star Wars humor because it was like. Star Wars humor to me is like in the moment. You know what I mean? It's not supposed to be like scripted jokes. It's supposed to be like in the moment, in the heat of the moment type humor. And the tongue thing works. That's very Star Wars type humor to me. But anyway, I thought this whole scene was good. And this is another thing that makes this scene really work. And something else that just kind of keeps you... something that really makes this movie at least watchable is definitely John Williams' score, and I think in the dinner table scene it's elevated there. As far as the score goes, I mean this is one of the best scores of all the Star Wars movies, despite the way this movie is. But yeah,
right, you got Duel of the Fates,
and
killer.
Yeah, oh hell yeah, man.
I mean Duel of the Fates is probably one of the other than some of the main themes, like Duel of the Fates is one of the best things to come out of a Star Wars score.
I agree, dude. I agree. 100%. What was this? This is the moment I think too. Sorry, the dinner table scene. I was trying to think. Is this the moment he reveals that he has a pod to Qui-Gon, or he's building the pod racer? Yeah,
I think so, because they start arguing about whether he should do it or not because his mom doesn't want to put him in danger.
Right. So yeah, so he so like I said, everything about the scene is very good. I actually even think Jake Lloyd did fine in the scene. Like I love the scene. And then we get around to the building of the pod. Now this is one of the better elements of the movie is we start to like learn a little bit more about Anakin's origins, because I like when Qui-Gon and Shmi are talking on the balcony while Anakin's fixing up his pod, and she's telling him that he had no father, right? Like these are some of the elements that work to me. I also think I don't like metachlorians. I hate that word when he's testing them for midichlorians. I think that stuff sucks. That stuff sucks. Yeah. The I don't know. I guess this is another one that kind of worked for me, is when Jar Jar gets his like tongue stuck in the thing. Like that was kind of funny, I guess. But and then you got R2 and 3PO. You know, something about R2 makes his beeps and 3PO's like, yes, I agree. He's very odd indeed. Like I thought that was really funny. Like I like those two interacting. And yeah, I actually really like the line of dialogue where Jake Lloyd, he starts up, and I like when John Williams' score kicks in here. He starts up the pod, and it's like, it's working. I thought that was really good. Like it was like a really good, put a really good feeling in my heart. Like it felt like I don't know. It was inspiring, I guess.
The pods in general, the pod racing stuff.
Oh yeah, it's just
one of the most redeeming qualities about this movie.
Oh, I agree, man. Like, just dive right into it. It has like one of the best lines though, too, because when Qui-Gon he goes up to Anakin, I like the gambling stuff with the Watto too, like everything about the gambling and how he used the Force to manipulate the dice. Like that stuff is amazing. Yeah. Like I loved when he goes up to Anakin as one of my favorite lines, like right before the race starts when he says feel, don't think. You know, like I thought that line, it's still one of my favorite lines in all of Star Wars, even though it came from this movie. You're right, dude, but the pod racing stuff is it's an amazing scene. Like I don't know if it's just because we were kids when we saw it, but like it really still holds up to me, this scene. Like
it does. I mean, when I was watching it, you know, I'm kind of judging this entire movie up until this point. I'm just kind of thinking, wow, this movie is kind of lackluster. Yeah. And then it got to the pod racing, and I found myself being completely locked in and captivated. Yeah. And then when it was over, I was like, oh shoot, that was still exciting. Like that was still cool. And part of it, a big part of it, sound design. The sound I was going to get into that, yeah. Of the pod racers, you know, coming from me having an audio background. Yeah. When I was in school, I did a project on Ben Burt, the sound designer. Yeah. His sound design work was just iconic, and the sound of those pod racers are just, I mean, they're badass.
They are, man. I fucking love the sounds of the pods, man. That's like that's one thing I'll give this movie. The sound design across the board for the movie is really good. Like,
I mean, that was the one redeeming quality as far as being Oscar nominated. They got nominated. They got nominated for 3 Oscars, and 2 of them were for sound. Yeah, and one was for something with video.
It actually makes a lot of sense too, man. I mean, because when you well, of course they have to get nominated for video too, because like they
it was special effects or something.
Well, this is like the first movie to ever like really dive in and play with the technology that we're using today. And as much as like the CGI did not hold up, and I really wish they would have gone more practical with the effects, because that is what makes the original trilogy look as good as it does till this day. I still got to respect that it kind of was the guinea pig and was like, we're going to dive in and try this out, you know? And it makes sense because like George Lucas was always, his company, you know, was always innovating. And as far as that goes, I mean, you know, the guy's a mastermind when it comes to technology and how he wants to use it.
If I remember right, it was, a lot of it had to do with George. George really wanted, we talked about this in school briefly. Yeah. He really wanted to get with the new technology and start doing digital stuff, because at this point in time, we were getting into the technological internet age, and analog was starting to convert and go digital, but it wasn't happening at a huge scale yet. Even in the audio community, people were changing from going to tape to actually having Pro Tools rigs and recording, to a hard drive. Right. And so the film industry was doing the same thing, but it was, especially in film, it's like, no, there's no artistry to digital. It's just, nobody wanted to really touch it. But George was like, yeah, let's do it. We're going to do it. And people were like, no, you shouldn't do that. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. And then he was like, screw it. Let's make everything CGI. I'll CGI their fingernails if I want to.
Yeah. But I almost wonder too, like if his ambition to try this new technology got in the way of the story, you know?
It did.
I gotta wonder that. Like, I respect the hell out of him for trying it, and I respect the hell out of this movie just for that. But it makes me wonder, like, if he had just, you know, not had been hung up about it, with this movie in particular, it turned out better. But on the same hand, if he didn't stay hung up on it, we never would have had the effects we probably would have gotten there eventually, but I think it allowed us to have this a lot quicker, you know. And I mean, and look wise, and we're not going to talk about Attack of the Clones here necessarily, but look wise, like Attack of the Clones, actually, the look of it is a lot better than the look of this one. Like, so, and that's just like a 6-year gap. So George being hung up on it definitely got us there a lot quicker, I think.
Well, and we look at the same era. We have these Star Wars prequels, and then we have the Lord of the Rings trilogy that starts coming in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And there is a stark contrast between the two, because when they made those films, they made it very clear that they wanted to stay more of the natural, organic,
right,
you know, not so CGI. There was a lot of original set design and makeup design, and they really leaned hard on that. And when you I know it's like comparing apples to oranges, they're two completely different series, but when you put them together, being from the same era, and you look at the choices that the directors made,
right,
one of them clearly has aged not so well, and the other one still kind of holds up. It's like if you watch Lord of the Rings now, you're still like, wow, this is still a pretty badass series.
Oh, it's amazing.
And when you watch Star Wars, you're like, okay, what was this? Let me look at the DVD. 1999, 2000. Wow, I thought it was 1800.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true, man. It looks like it looks aged, you know, more than it probably should. And yeah, but it's also funny because you bring up Lord of the Rings, and then you look at The Hobbit, which is using George's technology, right? So like the Hobbit series, so it's just, I don't know. It's kind of a, what do you call that? Vicious circle, I guess. But
you know what it's like? I got a good comparison here, since I live in Los Angeles and I know what it's like in Hollywood. It's like walking around Hollywood and you see all these people that are obviously plastic. They've got some work done.
Yeah.
People are afraid of aging out here, so it's very common. Now, it's like there is a difference between starting to get wrinkles and thinking, let me get a little bit done, you know, let me just fill out those wrinkles a little bit so that I don't look so old, and it can be tastefully done. And that's like putting CGI in where it's appropriate, you know, using that digital technology, and you're like, that complements the movie. Just like for somebody that's getting late in their 30s and starts developing wrinkles, they use a little bit of Botox and it's tasteful, but it doesn't take a lot to go over the edge. And all of a sudden you look at that person and go, that's not right. All of a sudden the person's walking around looking like, and you're like, that's not natural. And that's the same thing with these Star Wars movies. You're watching them and there are moments where you're like, okay, that's pretty cool. And then, but most of the time it's like, wow, they really overdid it, didn't they?
Like George said in the thing, like he was like, I may have went too far in a few places or whatever he said.
Maybe.
Like it's insanity, but you know, one of the reasons that the pod racing stuff looks good is because he actually used like the pod race is one of the better looking scenes because he actually used like a scale like model type thing to do like the overhead shots of the arena, you know, which made that look a lot better, I think. And so like you could just tell like it's so obvious where the practical stuff comes in and where the CGI comes in this movie as to where the lines are like a lot more blurred today. But yeah, this scene also introduces us to Jar Jar, or not Jar Jar Binks. We talked about Jar Jar. Fuck him. We Jabba the Hutt. It's introduced us to Jabba the Hutt once again.
Uh-huh.
So so that was I'm not like it's cool to see him, but like I don't know about you, but there are like people out there that are like hardcore Jabba the Hutt fans. Are you like that guy, or because like there are people that are obsessed with Jabba the Hutt?
No, I mean, he didn't have a real significant part in this movie. It was just kind of like one of those things where you're like, oh shoot, that's Jabba. Okay.
Right. I mean, yeah, I agree. And like the other thing about him is like they were gonna do like an entire Jabba the Hutt series, by the way, on like Disney Plus at one point in time. I don't know if you knew about that.
Interesting.
Like that was gonna dive into the criminal underground, which I could see how that could be cool. But like to have Jabba as the main character, though, I understand he's like the mob boss in the Star Wars.
He doesn't do a lot.
Yeah, he just kind of
He's not too active these days.
Exactly.
He's had one too many McDoubles.
Well, this is like based 20 years or so before more than that, before the original trilogy, and like
right,
and like he's still like not doing anything. So that just I don't know why people are like hung up on Jabba or like hardcore Jabba fans. But
yeah,
whatever.
It's not like he's gonna be flying around the galaxy on some sort of action adventure. The dude's like he's like a giant overeaten worm.
I agree, man. No shit. I mean, anyway, so Anakin does the pod race. I again, we love this scene, and then he wins, and then these moments I love, and so then we move into Anakin decides to go be a Jedi, and yeah, I like these moments too. Yippee! Because I stand corrected. I don't like these moments as much as I just maybe claimed, but
that's where we get our first yippee, pal.
It's true, man. It's true. Was that the first or the second? That was the second. That's the second.
Was
man.
it?
Yeah, because the first
it was
one,
one of them.
The first one, he's in. The first one, he's working in that shop in what's his name, Watto's shop, and Watto lets him go home early, so then he goes, the yippee. So second one, yeah. Who cares? They're yippies, but they got so they where was I? So he's going to be a Jedi, and then he says yippee, and then he goes up the stairs, says goodbye to 3PO, and I like the moment. Like Jake Lloyd's acting is really bad here, but I still like the moment. Like I think it's a good moment, makes sense with the story, it's consistent. Then he goes says goodbye to Shmi. Now I gotta say, like I remember in the theater when I was a kid, like the scene where he says goodbye to Shmi Skywalker, like actually choked me up in the theater, like as a kid. So like I understood what was going on there. I think it's that effect of like you got to say goodbye to your mother forever. Like imagine that, like George was really playing into your emotions on that one if you were a child and watching this movie. I don't know how you felt about it as a kid, but
and even watching it as an adult, I was like looking at Qui-Gon like, load her up in the ship, dude. Just take her. What's gonna happen? Like, what's the worst that's gonna happen?
Yeah. No shit. I don't know. I can understand why.
It would have changed. It would have changed the entire story, though. Like, you can imagine how is Anakin going to evolve as a person if his mom is still in his life? Because a lot of his trauma had to do with his mom.
Yeah, you're not wrong though. Yeah, and I agree, and but I think that this is actually a bigger conversation because I think that is actually one of the things that's kind of brilliant about this movie, and we'll get into that when I get to the ending here a little bit more too. But like, I think one of the things that's brilliant about the movie is that the mistake started with Qui-Gon. Like, it is Qui-Gon's fault. I think that this was actually something that George, I think it was conscious on his part to do this, because I think that, yeah, George knows that, like, this is Qui-Gon's mistake. Like, he should not have encouraged this kid to do what he did, It doesn't make Qui-Gon a terrible person, but, like, it was his mistake from the very beginning. Like, he should not have taken him from his mother, I don't think, And I think that while the movie doesn't blatantly tell us that, like, I think that it's when you analyze it again, it's like that's actually kind of deep, because like the reason that Darth Vader I'll get into this. So like when you think about the ending, the Duel of the Fates, right? Like, it's the Duel of the Fates not because of Qui-Gon or Obi-Wan or Darth Maul's fate. It's because of Anakin's fate and the fate of the child that's going to become excuse me. It's the fate of Anakin, who's going to later on become Darth Vader. If the fight doesn't go down the way it does, then the events don't play out the way they do. I don't know if that makes sense, because if Qui-Gon doesn't die, then Obi-Wan doesn't train Anakin. If Obi-Wan doesn't train Anakin, then Anakin doesn't fail, and it just all, it's a ripple effect. And this is something that you could actually see this on like YouTube. I'm stealing this a little bit because it changed my perspective when I heard Dave Filoni talk about it on this on that Mandalorian documentary series. Because when I heard Dave Filoni talk about it, who got this idea all from George when he was talking about this, I was like, okay, this is where the brilliance of this movie lies. This is where George still has it, is he meticulously planned it out. You know what I mean? Like, he knew that the Duel of the Fates was like the fate of the kid and not Obi-Wan and Anakin or Maul like we think when we're seeing it. But anyway, so he goes to what was I gonna say? So where was I before I got to the ending part of it? So he goes to be a Jedi. I'm sorry. So then this leads us into the first Maul fight.
Yippee!
Yippee! Leads us into the first Maul fight. I like all the Maul fights. I mean, you talk about sound design, man. Like when the Maul fights go down, the sound it's there, it's present. The lightsabers have never
choreography.
Choreography.
Ray Park Jr. with that choreography, man.
Dude, Ray Park in this movie is amazing. Like he's like the saving grace, if there is one, man, because he fucking first of all, he's the only character that got to avoid too many lines that were written by George Lucas in this movie. So there's that. So he's got that going for him. And so no wonder he
says almost nothing.
I know. So no wonder we think
that's why his character's so great.
It's true, man. He gives a really good, subtle, silent performance in the movie, and he's
just got
insane
visual attitude.
He really does, man. Oh my god, it's the one part of this movie where I get goosebumps is when the fucking doors open, man, and you see Maul standing there, and then he just I don't know. I'm sure you felt about the same way, but so the
Maul is, to me, the coolest villain in the Star Wars saga. I love everything about him. When I was like 5-6 years old, my mom was giving me Darth Maul face paint. I was a Darth Maul fan as soon as I saw him, and quite honestly, I am offended that all this time has gone by and we've still done nothing with Ray Park and the Darth Maul character.
Man, I agree. Well, hold on. I agree with you in live action sense, but like, I know you won't watch it, but the animated stuff is
no. I've watched some of it. I haven't watched all of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because
it was one of those things that when I wanted to watch it, it wasn't on the service that I was using at the time. So then I was like, I guess I'll have to wait.
That's a good point. I mean, let me ask you, did you watch the last 4 of Clone Wars then?
I don't think I watched the last 4. I think I watched the first bit of Clone Wars.
Okay, dude, skip ahead because you got like so much Clone Wars to go through, and just watch the last 4 episodes of Clone Wars. You got to let me know what you think of those.
I'll watch the whole thing.
All 7 seasons?
I'll watch. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
It's been one of those things that I've wanted to watch for a long time, but it's like there's just, there's so many seasons and there's so many other things to watch. It's just been hard for me to sit down and do it. But
I get it,
that's one of the things this year that I set out this year. I was like, okay, I'm going to do the animated stuff for Star Wars.
All right. I still haven't done Resistance, but I Clone Wars and Rebels I could vouch for. They're both great to me. Yeah, okay. I mean, then I won't tell you any more about Clone Wars, but all I'll say is the first 2 seasons they're rough, man. They're going to be rough because they're all told in a non-linear fashion. So you're not actually seeing the story played out in the first 2 in order, but then midway through season 3, it's all linear and it's much better.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with the animated. It's just that I consider the animated stuff and the live action stuff to be 2 separate things. it's hard for my mind to join stories. So it's like, even though they did stuff with Darth Maul in the animated series, I'm like, no, I'm insulted. I want to see Ray Park Jr. on the screen. I want to see him with his choreography just kicking ass. That's what I want.
Here's what I'll give you from Clone Wars. You're not going to have a hard time separating it once you get to the last 4 Clone Wars. You're going to understand the big connection between the two. That's all. I'll say that. And then your second thing is you get your Ray Park fix, man. They actually motion captured Ray Park in the last 4 episodes of Clone Wars. So you actually get his choreography on screen. And it shows, man. Like, it shows that it's Ray Park motion captured. But that's all I'll tell you. But anyway, so back to...
I still want him in real life.
I know, man. I think we're gonna get there. I'm
about to the point where I'm gonna start sending him hate mail. I'm gonna start mailing him boxes of poo.
He's under like I don't want to get into the controversy with his personal life, but he's under all this stuff right now, and don't send him poo. He's got a lot of pressure going on.
Who, Ray Park?
Yeah.
I don't know about any of his controversy. What's going on?
I can't tell you because I don't really know. Okay, so basically some texts were leaked, supposedly, from like a girlfriend or something like that. Yeah, that's all I'll say. I'm not gonna get into it on this, but you're gonna have to Google this one on your own because honestly, I don't know all the details.
Is it him? Did he do something bad?
He's getting me too'd, man. He's getting me too'd.
Dang it, Ray.
But. No, but it might not. It might be false. It might be false accusation that they're actually like gonna give him a fair shot. So
I'm gonna be so mad if he did something. I mean, obviously, I'm gonna be mad because he did something dirty, but I'm gonna be mad again because now I don't get any Darth Maul.
I don't know. I don't know if they would actually like.
You can get 2 boxes of poo.
I don't know what. I don't know if
3. You're gonna get 2. You're gonna get 2 for being dirty, and you're gonna get 1 for ruining Darth Maul for me.
What's he get 2 though? Like, isn't the third one just kind of redundant? Like it
kind of redundant.
But
what? Not if it's bigger.
This is gonna be a clip out. Sending Ray Park boxes.
As it should be.
It should be. Send him 4 at this point. But he so basically what I'll say is like I don't know if they would actually let Sam Witwer play him, and Sam Witwer voices him in Clone Wars, and Sam Witwer does I'm sorry, just because he had more development, I think Sam Witwer does the better voice for him. But like when they did him in Solo, they had Ray Park there in Solo, but it was Sam Witwer's voice over it. So I kind of like that idea, but like I don't know if like say Ray Park gets canceled, if they're going to let because you're sending him boxes of poo. I don't know if they're going to let him Sam Witwer, just step into the live action role. But anyway, so where were we? So Anakin's like, let's just get to the Jedi Council stuff. So Anakin goes to the Jedi Council, and then he's getting tested. I like the way they do the tests, by the
tested.
He's getting
Anakin, you need to get tested. He's got the midi-chlorian.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Nobody wants to catch the midi-chlorian, especially 20,000 of them.
Oh man. Oh boy. Fuck. Okay, so he so Anakin he's got the midi. So he's gonna go get tested, and
he got the midi, he's gotta get tested.
He's got midi 19. So he's going to get tested. And I like the way they do the testing. I actually think I like that they had like tablets before that, like we had tablets with like the pictures on them or whatever. He's like going through the things. I thought that was pretty cool. So so he's doing the So he's guessing all these right, and then Yoda still says no, which I like all this. I'm like, that sucks for the kid, but I like that Yoda's still kind of like he's sensing the future a little bit, or what could be in the boy's future beforehand.
Yoda had a little bit of attitude in that meeting.
Oh yeah, he did. So did Sam Jackson as Mace Windu.
Right, both of them did.
Yeah,
and that's what was kind of. I remember being a little confused as a kid, thinking, why won't they just train him? I was frustrated as a child.
Right.
I was like, why? I was like, dang, Yoda, like, don't give me that attitude. Train the kid.
Right. Like now you exactly. Now you understand it a little bit more, I think, as an adult. Like once you connect everything together, it makes more sense. And by the way, I hate watching these new the remastered version of this film that Lucas did, because Yoda's animated Yoda, and in the original episode 1 we had puppet Yoda again, and that's gone now. But I can still watch my clips on YouTube, I guess. But he so we got animated Yoda telling excuse me, Anakin, or telling Qui-Gon more so that he cannot train Anakin. And now one of the things I liked about the novelization, I really think they should have dove into this more here. Like they had the line where Obi-Wan was saying like I feel like we've picked up another useless life form, and the other one where he's saying that he just like, or he's saying like the council sees it, why can't you, or whatever. And this is like something in that Master Apprentice book I was kind of going over. Like there is a lot of tension between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon's relationship that they don't dive into in this book here, or this movie here, because even in the Phantom Menace novelization, there's just like a lot of tension between these two characters. I don't know. I guess I mean, do you think that like we could have benefited from even like more tension between like Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan at the beginning? Because like toward the end there, they had that whole scene where like Obi-Wan's basically, he goes up to him and he's like, I've been a pain in the ass, and you're just kind of watching it like, when you've been a pain in the ass, like it's I don't know, man. They could have benefited from like a more tension-filled relationship between the two, but I don't know.
I mean, I think they could have benefited from any sort of extra relationship, because they're, like I said before, I feel like Obi-Wan's character didn't have a ton of substance in this movie.
Right. I agree. Anything would have helped, right? I guess by the
It's kind of like one of those scenarios where, at that point in time, you had obviously seen the original trilogy a million times, and you're like, oh, Ben Kenobi, like he's just this big, legendary, wise, awesome man. And then you see this kid with a rat tail, and you're like, this is Obi-Wan? This is Ben Kenobi? This is who we're dealing with? And he doesn't even have that many lines.
You're not wrong, though. Like, it's true. It's like, even the look of Obi-Wan just doesn't make sense. We can get into, like, Jedi and all that, but, like why?
He's got the world's longest rat tail.
Why did they all have to have the braid? I don't know. I don't know if I understand that. Like, I know that they were trying to, like I know that like Jedi are supposed to be like based on samurai and all that. Like I get that, but like it just, I don't know.
Hey, rat tails were cool at the time.
I guess, man. I guess.
Were rat tails cool because of Star Wars, or did Star Wars do the rat tail because rat tails were cool?
I think Star Wars might have done the rat tail because they were cool.
So which came first, the chicken or the egg?
That's true, man. It's true. Probably like I really feel like they kind of came simultaneously, but whatever.
I had friends with rat tails in the early 2000s. It looked ridiculous.
Dude, like no shit. I don't even know what's a fucking store. I found this out, but I had, now that I'm thinking about it, I had Obi-Wan's rat tail, or not his rat tail, but his braid, and it was like, that thing, like you clipped it onto your own hair and it would come down. Some fucking store was selling that shit for whatever, however many bucks.
That was it was like the remnant of the mullet. It was like the mullet had passed and people had cut off their mullets, but they didn't quite have the courage to cut the rest of it off, so they kept a little rat tail.
Yeah. I almost wonder if like Obi-Wan's was like clipped on. Because like
on rat tail.
Well, like think about like when he undoes that thing and how his hair actually looks, because he's got like the short shit going on top. I mean, it'd be like a mullet, I guess, but like really think about that. Like, that would be like terrible for just the actor to walk around with. So I gotta look into it and see if Ewan McGregor actually grew his hair out for that, or.
Well, the rat tail braid he had around his shoulder was long.
I know.
Unbraided, that sucker would have been long.
That's what I think about. So that it would do a
He could have tucked it in his belt.
Oh man. Yeah, I don't know. I would hope that Ewan McGregor didn't actually grow that haircut or have that haircut, but
no, I actually hope he did.
There's got to be pictures online of this somewhere, right?
I'd like to know that he did. I would like to see that.
Oh, poor bastard.
See real pictures of him walking around with this nasty rat tail for like an entire year.
That poor bastard. Oh my gosh. So I don't know. Anakin tests negative, right? So,
thank God.
He tests positive, but no, he tested negative, but like I don't know. Would that be positive or negative? Because they didn't really let him do the thing. So, whatever.
I mean, he tested positive for the MIDI.
Yeah.
He had 20,000 middies.
Okay, I guess. So, now we're moving into, I don't know, there's more politics and stuff. I mean, Qui-Gon basically fucking lies to Anakin right around here. This is my favorite line in the movie because Anakin's like, Qui-Gon, sir, I don't want to be a problem. And then Qui-Gon goes, you won't be any. I love that. But he, like, think about that. It's like it's the biggest lie told in the galaxy far, far away, right? So,
boy, will you be a problem for a very long time.
Like, I don't know. Like, even as it's a problem with the script. Like, I understand Qui-Gon truly believed that he wouldn't be, but like, there had to be like some, I don't know, whatever. But so then Anakin wants to go say goodbye to Padme because he's going off for his Jedi training because Qui-Gon's going to do it anyway. And then so then there's this whole, I don't know, what is it? The Trade Federation comes back for revenge, basically. Like, that's basically what ends up happening. So, you know, this stuff is like, it's like there's parts of this last final sequence here that are like fun, but like there's other parts that are like very, very bad. Like the stay in the cockpit thing, and then Anakin puts on a helmet that just like so happens to fit his head. Like,
he's got a tiny head. He's 10. What kind of pilot has a head that small? It's ridiculous.
I mean, this kind of stuff, it's baffling. It
Pilot
really is.
Smallhead, your ship is missing. This guy with a giant body with this tiny little head.
Oh my gosh. Pilot Smallhead. Oh my gosh. That's so something they should have done in Spaceballs. This movie is a better Spaceballs movie than it is a Star Wars movie.
It really is. I'm surprised there isn't more parody stuff for the prequels.
Oh my! Did the Family Guy ever do the prequels? They did, right?
I don't think they did. I think they did the originals.
Yeah. Huh? They never did the prequels. Missed opportunities.
No, it was, Blue Harvest and what were the others?
Blue Harvest and
I don't remember the other one.
It's a Trap was one of them, wasn't it?
They were funny though.
They were amazing.
They were really funny.
If you could tear into the originals the way they did, imagine what they would do with the prequels, man. I mean, they missed opportunities.
Because there's a lot more material there.
Oh my gosh. I mean, you should really sell them your character there, Pilot Smallhead or whatever you call him.
It sounds ridiculous now that you're saying it.
It does, but it was funny.
It didn't sound that ridiculous when I said it, but then when I heard it said, it sounds absurd. Pilot Smallhead. Something that I was saying when I was watching it this time is the kid is flying through outer space in the spaceship. completely unconcerned. He is not concerned whatsoever. I mean, there are lasers and there are explosions. He has no idea how to properly drive this thing, and he is just like, whoa, like completely unfazed. I'm like, a 10-year-old kid accidentally gets in a ship and starts flying in the middle of a battle. Like, he's gonna be crapping himself.
This is one of the poorest things about this movie, because we're getting this amazing lightsaber duel, but it's intercut with Anakin going, "What's this do?"
It's almost like a parody is laced in.
I know. It's like both of these things belong in two different movies, and it's like it's all intercut together, I guess, but whatever. So, Anakin goes up to fight the pre-Death Star. I don't know. So he's going up to fight this, or to do this thing, and he's like, okay, I'll give George Lucas the clever line here. Anakin's, Qui-Gon told me to stay in the cockpit. That's what I'm gonna do. So it's clever, whatever. So he goes up, and he's, this is the Death Star before it was the Death Star. It's not really a Death Star. It doesn't do anything. It's a non-functional Death Star. But the base of the Trade Federation.
Controlling the droids, right?
Yeah, that's what I meant to say. The control center. The control center. You're right. Sorry. Couldn't think of the word, but it's it's controlling the droid. So he goes up to help fight this thing, and lo and behold, he's the one that ends up blowing the fucker up. I mean, if that's not derivative, I don't know what is.
I'm just saying, they have really, like, the villains in these movies, they have really got to start doing better with their engineers. I mean, when a 10-year-old kid wearing a tiny helmet comes in accidentally in this ship and destroys your entire command center and all the droids that you are controlling, I mean, you've got a problem.
Then you got like an 18-year-old farm boy in the originals that comes in, right? So it's like, I don't know, he didn't do much better, but so he goes up to for the space battle. Like, the space battle itself, I don't mind. And like, another thing that I'll say here is, like, the ship designs are really cool in this movie.
Cool,
like,
yeah.
I love, like, the yellow ships. Those are awesome. Or like the silver one even that they had back on Tatooine.
The silver one is cool.
It's really cool. Like, I love all this stuff. It feels like Star Wars here finally, but like, it's just, then you got Anakin just bobbing his head, in the ship, and you just and it ruins it, man. It just ruins it. Whatever. So we'll appreciate the good things, I guess. So then intertwined is the best part of the movie. The Duel of the Fates is going on. Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Maul. Now I remember, like, watching this in the theater as a kid, and like, just getting goosebumps. Do you remember watching this as a kid, like this sequence in particular, and like how amazing it was? Like, I remember it being like really loud.
Oh yeah.
But like, I also remember just giving me chills, like, as a kid.
Incredible.
Let me ask you this: do you have like a recollection of watching the original Star Wars movies before this one, or did you watch them after this?
I do. I have a recollection of watching the originals when I was very young.
Me too.
I lived in, let's see, at the time, I think I lived in Colorado. We moved around a lot as a kid. And I remember being at my friend's house when I was like 4, maybe. I was about 4 years old. I remember watching the originals on VHS very specifically. That is, I have a very vivid memory that I remember watching the originals.
Right. Yeah, I me too. Like, I know I saw them first, and then, like, because I remember the moment, like, I saw that episode 4 is when I was I remember playing with my toys, and then I just like dropped them. I remember that, like, opening crawl coming up, I just dropped the toys and my attention was at the TV screen from that point on. But anyway, sorry. So moving in, so we had the Duel of the Fates, and the Duel of the Fates is incredible. What is like we kind of talked about Ray Park and his kind of stunt work, but like, is there like, what is it up to you about the scene that just stands out in general? Like, outside of everything we've already listed, or is it just all that in one combination, I guess?
I mean, it's always been about the choreography to me. That it was cool. I mean, he's got a double-sided lightsaber, and the guy is fighting two people at the same time. He's got one guy on this side, one guy on this side, and he's hitting this guy with this side and this guy with this side, and it's just he's twirling it around. Just
I know,
mean,
man.
the skill, the choreography, it was super cool.
It is.
Still holds up. Still one of the coolest, if not the coolest, lightsaber battle in the entire saga.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a contrast from the one toward the beginning, where, like, I was talking about the camera work there. Like, as to this one, like, most of the work is on camera. Like, it's all in frame, you know what I mean? And you're actually really watching it. And, and you can see everything that's going on, and you can really analyze what move is happening when. And to me, those are my favorite kind of lightsaber battles, is like when we can actually see everything that's happening and it's all in frame. And I don't know why George didn't direct this way the rest of the film, but it was it was done really well here, I guess, and that's all that matters. And you know, so Qui-Gon gets killed. This moment to me, upon rewatching it, like, did this hit you? Or are you just like kind of, do you think the execution of the moment's good? Or
I mean, rewatching it, no, just because I've seen it so many times, but I remember watching it for the first time being like, no, like,
right,
just being destroyed.
Me too, man. And then, like, same experience here. I'm watching it today and I'm like, I was thinking the same thing when I was a kid. That moment really hit me, and then now it just, I think it goes to what we were saying, like, the development for the character, you know, is not all that, it's not there, so we don't really feel it, despite of what, you know, we may have learned about in, you know, other canon pieces like the books or whatever you may have learned about Qui-Gon. It's just, it's not present in the movie, the development for the character. I like Qui-Gon as a character, but it's not because of this movie necessarily. No. And I enjoy Liam Neeson's performance in the movie, but it's not why I like Qui-Gon either. So yeah, I was like, I don't really feel like much for it, but the impact of Obi-Wan coming out, dude, and just Obi-Wan and Maul together is like, oh my god, like, I'm rewatching this today.
As soon as that shield breaks, he comes out like Usain Bolt on a pair of starting blocks. He's like after it.
He's, oh my gosh, these two actors just like killed it. You felt the rage, man, and this is like something that we've seen repeated in Star Wars movies, is like when characters, or when Jedi or Force users use their, or lose their patience, right? Because he's just ready to get them, and this is why Obi-Wan almost lost this fight, is because he lost his patience. And this is a theme that's been, you know, spread throughout Star Wars movies, and it's something that was put in here, and I was happy about that. He's hanging off the thing. And then I love the moment John Williams' score kicks in, he's using the Force to get the lightsaber, and he's gonna cut him in half and kill him, which doesn't actually kill him, come to find out. But he he cuts Maul in half, thinks he kills him in the moment, and Maul goes falling down. There's something that just, I don't know what it is. I mean, it still resonates with me when I see, like, because I think it was because when I was a kid, it was like one of the more violent things I've ever seen, was Maul falling down the shaft and just split in half. Like, it just, that scene still plays pretty well today, and that might have, like, again, might have been one of the more violent things I'd seen as a kid. And you're kind of watching that going, this movie's PG, you know, because it didn't even go up to PG-13. But whatever. So Maul's cut in half, he's falling down the shaft, and then we get the celebration scene. It's all happy. One of the
I always thought the celebration scene was kind of cheesy.
It is. It's very cheesy. I actually got to agree with that. It feels like it was trying to be good as the one at the end of Return of the Jedi, but just couldn't do it, you know?
Which was still kind of cheesy, but this one was real cheesy.
Yeah, but when you think about, like, yeah, there was just no reason for this type of celebration. Like, analyze everything that's happened in the movie, why are we celebrating this to this degree? Like, nothing happened really. I mean, yeah, they blew up the control room for the droids. That's all they did. They blew up the control room for the droids, and they killed the Sith Darth Maul. But there's really, when you think about it, it's just kind of another day, right? Like, I would think, like, they've had to have, like, lost Jedi before. You know what I mean? But whatever. Yeah, I agree. And then the one in Return of the Jedi was what I was going to say. There's so much more to celebrate, you know? So I think that's why that one stands better than this one.
Right. I mean, because in this movie, it's like, okay, so you destroyed the control center and the droids, you killed Darth Maul, but we also know that there is another Sith out there, and that's bad.
Right. Yeah.
That's bad. That's really bad. And on top of that, you still know that you've got government corruption that's going on that you have to deal with.
Yeah.
And, you know, you've got all this extra stuff that's still going on in the background. It's like, no, we shouldn't celebrate yet because something is coming on the horizon that's not going to be too pretty.
Yeah. I do love it's during the celebration though when Ian McDiarmid comes up, Palpatine comes up to Anakin, and he's like, "We'll be watching your career with great interest." Like, I thought that worked really, really well. And then do they go from, I can't remember. Do they go from celebrating to burning Qui-Gon's body, or is it the other way around?
I feel like Qui-Gon was one. I don't know. Maybe I'm just remembering incorrectly. I thought it was one of the last parts of the movie.
Yeah, I agree. But I'm trying to think of, who cares? Either way, these two scenes don't go together well. So, and then, but I do like how it kind of plays into the rule of two. I enjoy that because that's kind of the first mention of it, like of the rule of two, and like how there can only be two. And then we go into Yoda, talking about, you know, he doesn't want Obi-Wan to take the boy on, and I actually really enjoy this stuff. Anytime Yoda's just sitting in the temple and pondering something, like, I quite enjoy that a lot, because it really is, like, it does preface everything in the originals. But anyway, so that's pretty much that, right? Like, then the credits roll, and that's the end of the movie. So
I mean, I think we've got to talk about, we've got to appreciate just Palpatine's character in general, Ian McDiarmid. We have to talk about him because he's always a shining spot in the saga. I always really like his character and the way he portrays the character, and that is one of the things I like about this movie is the political corruption and his involvement.
Right.
You know, you go back and you think, just watching this movie, like, you know, like we were talking about, how you're just trying to ask yourself, like, why are they making these decisions? Why are these things happening? They're not explaining them very well. But it's all like Palpatine is involved with the Trade Federation, and it's almost like he's positioned himself there, and he's positioned them and encouraged them to do a blockade at Naboo because that's his home planet.
Right.
And if it's at his home planet, and with him being in the Senate and being buddy with Amidala, he can influence her to maybe ease him into more of a position of power. So I almost feel like he uses the Trade Federation just to fully, in all, his whole purpose was just to use them so that he could try and leverage himself into this position of power.
Yeah, you bring up a great point there. That's something we should have touched on, and because I think that, you know, Palpatine is the through line, you know, for all of Star Wars. I mean, at this point, he really is, and so to see that was one of the bright spots of the movie. As much as we make fun of this movie today, there are these just incredible bright spots Palpatine, just like you were saying, leveraging his way to power, being the corrupt leader that he is, and
He's so manipulative.
right, and
it's fantastic.
He's so good at that. And Ian McDiarmid does not get enough credit for just what he does in this movie alone, because he is so phenomenal of an actor. You can tell he's like a real seasoned actor, and he's a good character actor, and it does take that performance to have those spots in the movie. Sure, there are some of the politics where you really have no idea what's going on, but when he is speaking in these political moments, you are paying attention to what Ian McDiarmid is saying, and that is actually a really good point that you just brought up, and yeah, we can't praise him enough. The other thing I missed though too, and I wanted to bring up, was that the whole, and we forgot all about this, was the whole, because they get Boss Nass and the Gungans to help them fight this battle, which we didn't even talk about the ground battle either. I think I just skipped right over that. And so a couple things I wanted to go over here. So first of all, we have the whole twist, I guess, where Anakin or Padme going, "I'm the real Queen Amidala," which, whatever, it's a fine twist, I guess. But when you rewatch these movies, you can tell when it's Keira Knightley and when it's Natalie Portman playing the character, even with the makeup on. So maybe that could have been done a little better. But I remember sitting in the theater and going, "Oh, I didn't know that." And then the ground battle. Something I wanted to say about the ground battle is, you've seen like Black Panther, right? Obviously, which R.I.P. Chadwick Boseman.
R.I.P. Man, that upset me.
And the reason I wanted to bring up the ground battle is because I feel like Black Panther actually took a lot of inspiration from this battle, like in that Wakanda battle. Like, there are like vibes of that here, and I feel like while the Wakanda battle is much better than this battle on the ground here, I do feel like there is inspiration for not just the Wakanda battle we see in Black Panther, but I've seen like a lot of battles that are on the ground that seem to take inspiration from this one and in other movies. I don't know. Did you feel that at all, or have you like watched other movies like would that have like ground battles like this, and you felt like they took from the Phantom Menace, or have you not felt that as much?
I can see that. I definitely, thinking about that Wakanda battle.
Yeah,
it does feel very reminiscent. And I vaguely remember watching that and feeling like I've seen something like this before, but not exactly pinpointing it.
So you didn't,
it does feel extremely similar.
Yeah, and I think that's
much more grand.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that, to wrap it all up here, I think that's the thing that really makes this movie, what it is we could bitch about it, but what came out of, this movie, like, there's still like many things about this that, filmmakers have taken and, did these things better, but they still like it still inspired a lot of different sequences we've seen in film today, and we can't really take that away from the Phantom Menace at the end of the day. And we've already gotten into the technology and how that's allowed filmmakers to do much more grand stories that they've been able to do. And I mean, I'm sorry, like, without it, the Marvel movies don't look as good as they do. It's just, that's a fact. But anyway, that was the review. Did you have any final thoughts, Adam? Go ahead, take it away.
I mean, all in all, as crappy as a lot of this movie is, as bad as the script is, and the acting and the CGI and a lot of the storytelling choices, there's a lot of bad stuff about it. But all in all, like you said, you can't discount the influence it's had on film, and specifically the action adventure fantasy sort of genre, and also the fact that there are thousands, if not millions, of people around our age that watch this as kids and were inspired by it. And no matter how much we complain and we laugh at it, the fact of the matter is we're still going to pop it in and watch it.
Right.
And that's just, it's how it is. I mean, it's got flaws, but we grew up watching it, and it gave us all these really fond memories of being a kid that are tied to these movies. And so no matter what mistakes they made, it's pretty, I mean, they're pretty valuable just for the memories they gave us and the influence they had. And every time a new Star Wars movie comes out, I'm still going to pop it into review.
Yeah, man, I agree 100%. And I think that, it's always fun watching a Star Wars movie. There's something to it, and it's still something about it still brings the atmosphere to a different place, to an elevated place. And I don't care who you are, when you see the opening crawl in a Star Wars movie, I mean, you got to get excited. You got to get the goosebumps. It just happens.
I accidentally hit fast forward on this when I started it, and I just barely missed the fanfare where the Star Wars logo pops up, and I had to rewind it. I was like, we are not starting on this foot.
Good man. Yeah, so that was the review. I thank everybody for joining a review discussion. I mean, the movie's been out for a long time, but so that was the discussion.
Go out and see it. It's brand new.
That was the discussion.
Starring Pilot Tiny Head.
I thought it was Small Face. I don't even know anymore. Sorry. But so anyway, thank you for joining. I know that was probably a messier review than we were probably planning on doing, but this movie is just so fucking messy. So you like it? The review
it went exactly messy. How I hoped it would go.
Okay, I'm glad, man. I'm glad.
Anakin tests positive, and there's a tiny head, and all in all, boxes of poop. It went really well. Good review.
Oh boy, always great to have Adam here from the Red Eclectic. Please make sure you check it out what the Red Eclectic's doing, by the way. Just make sure you do that. And it was great having a discussion with you today, Adam, so thank you for being here. And also, am I going to have you back for Attack of the Clones?
Sure, why not?
All right, fuck yeah. All right, so we're going to try to hopefully go through the whole Skywalker saga here. We'll see where that leads us, but this was a lot of fun. Thank you for coming on today, Adam. I appreciate it. Where can people find you, though, just so they know where to go look at your stuff?
Find me on Instagram and Facebook at the Red Eclectic, and like I said last time, still preparing to do a podcast out here in California. Things are just barely starting to get back to normal with the whole pandemic thing. So my wife's going back to work. So it's hard for me to have my whole setup because, we live in a small apartment. So it's hard to get everything in the right place when, we're both in one small space. But she's going back to work, and I've been writing some episode ideas. So that'll be up after a while, and cool. I'm sure I'll be back on to update everybody. But yeah, Instagram, Facebook at the Red Eclectic for your daily motivational needs.
All right, Adam, thank you so much for joining, and you guys do make sure you do check everything that he's doing out. And I've been Dom Martino. This has been an episode of Dom's Corner. Please like this video, hit the subscribe button below. I'll also be leaving my social media in the description below, so be sure to follow me there. All right, guys, I've been Dom Martino. This has been Dom's Corner, and I will see you guys again on Saturday. Thank you for joining.